So you might have heard that you can buy a house with no money down. Stick around. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch. I'm a real estate agent here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I also serve kind of all over Minnesota, and I'm happy to do so. I love the state. I love the Twin Cities. I was born here. I was raised here. I still live here. I love it. This channel is basically devoted to all things real estate in the Twin Cities, but I am deeply, deeply passionate about helping people who don't think that they can own a home, don't think it's in the cards for them. Maybe they didn't grow up with their parents owning a home or whatever it is. Or they just think, wow, with the work that I do, there's no way that I can own a home. With the money I make, whatever, there's no way that I can own a home. And it truly is a passion of mine to help those folks own a home and hopefully improve their lot in life and their family's lot in life through the power of real estate with the power of equity of real estate. So thank you so much for watching. This video specifically is basically a question that I hear sometimes, which is, can I buy a home with no money down? And short answer, yes. Misleading answer, yes. Long answer, maybe. Stick around. Let's get into it. Okay, so there are indeed certain boxes, I'm going to say, that if you fit into certain boxes, then there are a handful of ways that a person can get into a home with no money down. And here's what they are. Probably the most common one, at least in the Twin Cities, is a VA loan, which basically just means if you are a veteran, then you have access to a VA loan, which is a loan that is fundamentally insured by the Veterans Administration, and the VA gives loans to veterans for 0% down, plus they'll pay closing costs. So sometimes you can get a home loan from the VA for like 103% of the actual sales price. So if you are a veteran, hopefully they tell you about this because it is wildly powerful and seriously really cool. And by the way, I love investing. That loan can work for a duplex, triplex, or fourplex as well. I've heard of a lot of veterans getting into the investment game through that, using a house hack as their first house. So powerful. If you're at all interested in that and you're a veteran, or if you're not a veteran, reach out to me. I love that stuff. Seriously, I can't shut up about it, but I will, because the next part is what is called a USDA loan. And yeah, USDA, like the bananas you get that are organic. USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture. And maybe you're thinking, well, wait, why do they give home loans? Good question, but it's basically they provide home loans to rural areas because our rural areas are really important for society in general. Farming is super important for life in general, right? For the United States to work as we work, farming is super important, and thusly rural areas are super important. Small towns are important because people have to live in rural areas to farm and basically to make that life at all, and that they don't just disappear, because farming and the likes are so important that if there are no rural towns, then it would be really hard to be a farmer because there would be no way to get supplies, etc. And honestly, if I'm being quite frank, I don't know that that's why they give out USDA loans, but that's my assumption. That's just a guess. It seems like a good reason. The government likes to incentivize people to do certain things that will benefit them, and that just seems like maybe that's why they do that. Okay, another way that you could potentially get into a home with no money down is there are some first-time homebuyer type programs where you can get into a house for no money down. I will say that as far as I know, they are difficult to get and maybe more headache than they're worth, but I will extrapolate on that a little bit down the road. The requirements for you, basically the box that you have to fit in, is very small. It's not you have to be a veteran or you have to buy in a rural area. You have to basically check all these little boxes on a piece of paper, and you have to fit into that box. Otherwise, you just won't get it. But I've talked about this in other videos, and I'm going to talk about it here as well. but I'm going to go right after this next part. The next potential scenario in which you could get into a home with no money down is called contract for deed. In Wisconsin, they call it land contract. I'm assuming that across the country, there's a few different names for it. Seller financing would be another thing that it's called, but basically they're kind of all the same thing. And I think seller financing is probably the most descriptive way of saying it. And basically what it means is that you have homeowner Sally over here. She owns the house, and outright just basically meaning she doesn't owe any money on a loan, right? She owns the house outright. The only payment that she makes is for taxes and, probably insurance and stuff like that. But there is no loan left on the home. She owns it and she decides to sell it. And maybe Sally's having a hard time selling it, or, potentially she lives in a rural area. And so she has a smaller field of potential buyers. Maybe her house is not in very good shape, or maybe you have a relationship with Sally. Maybe you know Sally and she wants to sell you this house, but she knows that you don't really have any, cash saved up for a down payment. And she knows that maybe you're going to struggle to get a mortgage. And so Sally decides to sell it to you on contract for deed. And very often contract for deed, they'll require 20% down payment. A lot of times it's for cabins or vacant land, or like hunting land is a really common thing that you'll see it in Minnesota on stuff like that. But I suppose every once in a great while, there is a seller like Sally who wants to sell her house to somebody she knows, or somebody she trusts, or somebody just loves her house, or something like that. Who knows why, and she says, I will sell it to you on contract for deed, and you do not need to pay me any down payment. Basically, you can just make payments to me every month for X amount of years or whatever. Sometimes you'll see a contract for deed that it has a balloon after 5 years. So basically, they're going to let you get into that home and let you pay them for X amount of years, say 5 years. But then at the end of that 5 years, you have to have your ducks in a row and you have to be able to qualify for a traditional mortgage. So then you can pay her outright and then take over the house with a standard mortgage. That is not all that common of a method, but you do see it, and it would be one of the ways that you could potentially get into a house for zero money down. I've heard of investors literally just pursuing homes and asking, say, landlords or homeowners or whatever, and just saying, can I buy your house on contract for deed with zero money down? It happens. It works for some people. And if you're lucky enough to find that, good on you. But I do really want to talk about sort of the alternative to that zero money down first-time home buyer thing. They're tricky and potentially more hassle than they're worth, because there is this other program, which I have talked about on other videos, and I know that I will probably continue to talk about it more, but that's because I think it's powerful. I wish I knew about it. I feel like I should be, shouting it from the rooftops. It is a super cool program, and that is the MHSA, which means the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, and they have a down payment assistant program, and basically the minimum out-of-pocket contribution from the buyer is $1,000. So yeah, that's not zero down, but $1,000 down is pretty good, especially when you consider rentals. $1,000 damage deposit is entirely common around here. So $1,000 out-of-pocket contribution, and then they cover the rest of the down payment. They can also even cover some closing costs, but we're not talking about closing costs, so I'm not going to talk about that. There are other ways to get the seller to pay the closing costs. I do it all the time. It's awesome. I am 100% for it. And then I just want to be clear, even these 0% down things, there are some things that you might still have to pay for. You may be able to qualify for a 0% down payment assistant program. And if you fit into that very small bucket, and you can qualify for that. But if you don't have a real estate agent who is basically work with you to get the sellers to pay the closing costs, then you're going to have to come out of pocket 3% to pay closing costs. Hopefully any real estate agent worth a can do that for you, but just know that that's possible, and know that if you're not working with me, you're working with somebody else. Just make sure that they are aware and they're conscious of the idea that you are going to have to make the seller pay the closing costs, because if they don't, you could be screwed. You might not be able to afford it. If they don't know ahead of time, then they might be showing you houses that maybe they shouldn't show you, because if you have to add 3% on, then maybe it goes too high over the budget that you can possibly afford, etc. But all of this is just stuff that I want you to know. I think it's important that you know it, and to know that there are these programs out there like the MHSA where you can do 1,000% down, or my God, if you're a veteran and you don't know about the VA loan, and then again, the USDA loan. If you're trying to buy something in a very rural area, then I would say the USDA loan could be a really good program for you, and it would be something that I would be advising you to look into maybe before anything else. You know, I gotta say, I really enjoy making these videos. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm super passionate about getting people into a home who maybe don't think they can. That's probably a big part of why a lot of these videos are sort of aimed towards first-time home buyers and sort of the educational side of it. It's because I love to do it. I love to help the people who don't think they have a chance at owning a home. I'm somewhat of a contrarian by my very nature. I'm a real estate agent, which most people would be considered a salesman, and I hate to be sold to. So that is not what I do. I do not sell to people. I try to educate people. And if people want to take advantage of the stuff that I can educate them with, then I'm more than happy to help them get there. But by my very nature, I hate being sold to. I hate pushy salesmen. And there are a lot of real estate agents out there like that. And so I am doing the very opposite, everything I can to never become that person. And hopefully if you're watching this and you're thinking about buying a home, hopefully I can help you achieve that goal, but it is not about selling. I don't have to sell anything to you. I just want to show you these ideas and inform you on these ideas. If I'm the kind of person that you'd want to spend time with looking for a house, if you think you can trust me, cool. Let's be friends. Let's hang out. Let's go look at houses. I'll buy you a beer when this is all over, but what you got to do is reach out to me, right? I don't know who you are until you reach out to me. So send me an email, text me, call me, DM me. Go to my website. There's a contact page. You can contact me there. Whatever you got to do. Send me a telegraph. Send me a handwritten letter. Whatever it is you got to do, just do it. I look forward to meeting you, and I hope this was educational. But hey, thank you for hanging out. I love you. Bye-bye.